Season 5 of Own Your Divine Light show. I am your host, Yarra Atlantica Miller, also known as Janet Miller. And the theme of this show is the Divine Human Rising, recovering our sacred truth. This show is an exploration of the secret truths that have been concealed from us. We are letting go of this old system that no longer works for us and has held us back from becoming the divine humans we are meant to be. Today, we are having the transcendent Ameera Beth Atlantis. That's how I introduced you. I mean, if you want to change it, you can. Who will be sharing her divine truth with us so that together we can achieve the divine human rising. And welcome, Ameera. I'm just so excited to have you here.
Thank you. Ashihi. That is the mermaid greeting.
Oh, thank you. Ashihi. I love that.
Ashihi.
So let me tell everyone a little more about you. So Ameera Atlantis is a multi-dimensional teacher and healer for the return of the new Earth Atlantis rising. As an incarnated mer being, she serves as a bridge between worlds, the watcher in the earthly, I don't think I said that right. The watcher in the earthly.
The water in the
sorry.
earthly.
It's a typo here. I apologize. And it's all about bridge between the water and the earthly. I didn't double check that. So my apologies. The watcher and the earthly. And Ameera, her focus is to help restore the law of one and the 7 spiritual laws of Atlantis. And she is an advanced past life regression therapist and creator of the Atlantean light body and DNA activation, and the steward of the Temple of the New Atlantis. So many things I'm excited to talk to you about, Ameera. So welcome again, and so happy to have you here.
Thank you, Janet. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and your work is so multidimensional. That's the only word I can put with it, because of all the different bridges you are building to restore us back to the divine humans we're striving to be. So I kind of mentioned before we started, but I've always been connected to the mer people and the mermaids. I've loved water my whole entire life. I can't be away from water. And so if I'm at a beach, I'm in the water. I'm not sitting on the beach, I'm in the water. So I just always feel connected to the water. And that's my connection. And then I buy, of course, some mermaid paintings, and I have mer jewelry, and and I have some of your Andaras, which are spectacular. And I'm in the middle of renovation, so I apologize I don't have them here right now, but I should have, but I don't. But you have to go on to Ameera's shop that she has online. She creates beautiful necklaces, raw pieces of Andara. I mean, they're spectacular. And if you don't know what they are, I think Ameera will tell us a little more about them later.
I will.
Yeah. And so you talked about, as a mer person, the first time I heard you, that's what drew me in. I said, oh my gosh, this is a woman who actually can identify and validate that she's a mermaid. I mean, I listened to a few things about how you found out, and you had this incredible awakening, which wasn't an easy one, because you kind of went from unawakened to awakened. Like yes. One of those flash ones, you went right into it. And it was really intense, because you had no idea, you were doing the traditional lifestyle, family, married, being the mom and
driving minivan.
Driving the old minivan. I never got a minivan. I refused. So, and who isn't curious and loves to hear about the magical mer people? I mean, we have so many stories about mer people, but they're not exactly the truth of everything, which I understand. But can you tell us who the mer of Mintaka are?
So the mer of Mintaka, if you identify as a mer person, as an incarnated mer person, you may be from Mintaka. That's where most of the mer people originated from. Now, some of them originated from some other places as well, but that is the origin of my soul. That's where I came from.
That's one of my places.
Yes. And so most of the beings that I talk to who feel that they are incarnated mer also feel that they, when we start talking about Mintaka, which is, the blue planet, the blue water planet, they feel that that's where their soul home is. So when you want me, how you want me to go into this?
Whatever way you feel drawn. Like, I
Okay.
know you've told your story a lot, but people love to hear stories, and it's
Yes.
it's like how they get to know you. And
Yes.
it's like it's the old legendary way of knowing people. I mean,
Storytelling,
yes.
storytelling.
Yes, and I always love the gods and goddesses, and the mermaids are definitely the
Right.
goddesses of the water.
Myth and
Of the
mythology
mer
and
people.
storytelling is how, eons of generations have passed on their stories
Mhm.
and their lineages. And so, we are in an era now where I believe we are meant to weave new myths into the timelines.
Mm. Oh, I love that.
The stories and the myths that we know of the fall of humanity, our fall from grace, whether that's the Garden of Eden or that's the fall of Atlantis,
Mhm.
we hear so much about what humanity has done wrong. We hear so much about myth and mythology about, the gods, the goddesses, and the titans, and how they kind of
Took over.
messed everything up.
Yep.
That's the myths. Those are the myths that are woven into the fabric of our being.
Mhm.
And, all of us, I believe, have an oversoul that is connected to whether that's a god or a goddess or an archangel or whoever you identify with as your soul, you're part of that lineage. So we bring part of that story, those stories, into our earthly bodies with this. And some of those stories aren't so great. They're not, they don't have happy endings, right?
Yep.
So as I begin to tell you the story of the myrrh, the mythology of the myrrh, if you will, there is an intention on my part to help. It's important to understand history. It's important to understand where we came from, because everything is cyclical. We're constantly repeating cycles. And one of the ways we can create a new cycle, a new paradigm, or a new epoch is to take these old myths and these old stories that are so alive in our DNA and our cells and
Mhm.
collapse them and create new myths for humanity.
Oh, yeah.
The story of the divine human, the
Yes.
story of the exalted human,
Mm.
the story of the human, that the human angel, whatever you want to call yourself, that rose up this time around and changed the story and changed the outcome. And that's really what we're doing with Atlantis, because Atlantis had 5 incarnations, 5 rising and fallings that all kind of ended up the same way. And most people think that Atlantis was a failure. We hear the myths in the story that Atlantis fell and it was so bad, and humanity got infected by the dark and the ego and all the things. And so that is the story of the AI technology, all of that has been woven into the timeline. So part of my mission is to tell you and teach you the new story we are writing. And that story comes mostly from the Mer people who were there at the beginning. We were there at the beginning and the onset of the creation of the earth. We were there when the Atlanteans came down and settled, and we walked with the Atlanteans. We transformed, grew legs, and helped them. And so I'm going to go a little bit deeper into that in a while, but back to Mintaka.
Mhm.
And what is Mintaka? So Mintaka is the blue water planet, and it is the story of the mer. It is the origin of the majority of the mer, and also many other aquatic creatures that you would know, like dolphins. Many of the dolphin varieties also came from Mintaka, and the mer and the sea creatures fell to earth when earth was first being formed.
Now, how do
We
you mean they
brought
fell? Did something happen to Mintaka?
we fell, meaning not fall, we fell, meaning we came.
Oh,
We
okay.
came
They
from the stars.
chose?
Yes, good. Meaning of the word is very important. So thank you.
Yes, yes.
We came to earth.
Mhm.
Okay. And when I say
Chosen.
fell, we chose to come from Mintaka and bring original water, which was liquid
Mm.
plasma light
Wow.
from our star system, which is Mintaka is the westernmost star in Orion's belt. We chose to come and bring the liquid plasma light that was original water to the earth.
Wow.
Back when the earth was nothing but water, it was actually something different. It was more like the liquid plasma light was more like, the closest thing I can compare it to is amniotic fluid.
That makes sense. Sure.
Something that is living, breathing, alive, has a little bit more density to it,
It
that has
sounds very
nourishment.
nourishing.
It
Yeah,
has
there you go.
nourishment. Yes, that's what it has. So
Yeah.
the Mer seeded original Earth when we came and we brought the waters. And
Wow.
Dr. Emoto talks about how water is from outer space. It's
I never heard him say
extraterrestrial.
that. You know, that's so
Yes.
interesting. I didn't realize he said that, but that's fascinating. Yeah.
Yes. So we fell to Earth and brought original water and brought the other sea creatures to begin to seed and nourish planet Earth. And I was one of those who came with the original Mer.
Wow. Ooh, I mean, what kind of an awakening is that when you realize that you did that? I mean, that's an incredible awakening that you
Well, the
opened.
awakening for me has been a progression, and the realization of some of these things has been a progression for me. The first time
Sure.
I saw
Sure.
myself or experienced myself as Mer
Mhm.
was in a past life regression maybe 14 years ago. I went because, I had just kind of come through the beginnings of my spiritual awakening, recognizing that I was more to be a mother and a housewife, shuttling kids around in a minivan,
Yes.
living in the suburbs. And I was
Yeah.
having, all these things happen as what happens when you have a drastic spiritual awakening,
Mhm.
the 2x4, and you start to read and you start to study and meditate and develop and remember all the things you forgot
Yes.
before
You
you
become,
awakened,
yes,
right?
become voracious, a voracious learner.
Yes, exactly. So part of my journey was as I would meditate daily, my arms one day began to move in my meditation chair, and they began to do these graceful, swimmy motions that were involuntary of my asking my arms to do it. They would
Wow.
move involuntarily, and I was very amazed and like, what's happening, right? And I soon found out, just allowing an opening to it, this entire energy moved through my entire body, like my whole
Wow.
body would do this. And I was in the awe and wonder and a little bit scared, all the
Sure.
things. And
Yeah.
I found that if I just allowed my hands to go around my children or the person I was married to, I would calm them. Headaches would go away. They had a kind of a soothing and a healing effect. So of course I went, what is this?
Mhm.
And I had been reading Dr. Brian Weiss,
Yep.
Many Lives, Many Masters, reading a little Dolores Cannon, and it felt logical to me to go to a regression therapist and have some hypnosis done and find out exactly what was happening to me. So I did that. I went and saw a wonderful, very well-known therapist, psychologist in Portland, Oregon, where I live, named Julia Ingram, who put me on the couch. I'd never been hypnotized before, never done a past life regression before. She puts me on the couch. She talks me down into the trance, and immediately I am writhing somatically on her couch, doing this,
Wow.
swimming down, down, down into the ocean, exclaiming, I'm a mermaid, I'm a mermaid. And at that time, I didn't even know mermaids were a real thing.
Right.
So I'm making this declaration, and I'm doing this on her couch, and in my back of my mind, I'm thinking, this woman is going to think I'm insane, right? She's going to think I'm crazy.
Yep.
So I'm swimming down, and I see this underwater city that
Mhm.
is covered by a dome, and everything in my experience oddly was cartoonish. I looked like a cartoon. Atlantis looked like a cartoon. What I thought was Atlantis looked like a cartoon. And I thought, how can this be real? Like, am I remembering a cartoon? But she just encouraged me to stay with my experience
Well,
and
it's what you
go
know.
with it.
Yes, you know about the Little Mermaids, and
Yes.
be a
Yeah.
natural
And that's what makes you
connection.
think you're making it up, because, okay, I've seen this,
I know what
but
this is. Yes. Am
yeah,
I
so
making
I
it up?
just trusted myself. I went with it. I went through this full-blown remembrance that I am an incarnated Atlantean mermaid in human form, and started to bring back the beginnings of that information of all of that back into my conscious mind. And of course, it completely changed everything I thought I was and everything that I thought I was here to do. And upon doing more regressions, found out that I am here to act as a liaison between the Mer realm and Atlantis, to be a bridge and to speak about not only Atlantis, but to speak about the Mer beings of Merlantis. The city I saw was actually Merlantis, which was the home of the Mer people.
Yeah. So are your guides Mer people? Do you have a lot of Mer guides?
I do. My oversoul connection is Yemaya, who is the African mother of the fishes. I have a very close association, of course, to Poseidon, who has been my beloved in many realities. And then, you know, the Nereids and really all the Mer people are my family. They're my Ohana, and my guides in my human experience who have come forward to help me to remember who I am and more about what I'm here to do to help the planet.
Yeah, and I love that. I mean, it's just so refreshing to hear that you have connected to all of this, because Mer people is something to me that I think everybody wants to believe is true.
Yes.
We all want to believe it, and now you're telling us it is true.
Yes,
And
and
you
there are
were the
many of us
early
returned.
ones. So you were
Many,
earlier
many
than,
Mer beings.
and you were earlier than the Lemurians. So you were the Lemurians were they Mer people?
Well, remember Lemurian
Yeah, I just
has
thought of that.
that.
Yeah, and so
Even though it's spelled differently, that you know, that enunciation is in there. So the Mer were there also in Lemuria. What I remember the time of Lemuria is I remember being in the water and helping in the birthing pools.
oh, beautiful.
That ran alongside. Yes, I don't remember being on land in Lemuria. My remembrance is mostly, it is all about being, you know, in the water with the other Mer.
Which is where you're meant to be. I mean, that's a beautiful remembrance. Yeah, I love that. And so you also you're involved with the Law of One and all. Is that part of what you brought through when you came from Mintaka? Was the Law of
So as I came from Mintaka, and you know, for a very, very, very long time, the Mer were just seeding the planet, opening the planet, working with the liquid plasma light, and the Law of One really is from Atlantis. Now, the Mer lived the Law of One and the 7 spiritual laws of Atlantis. That's just who we were. We taught that and brought that to the Atlanteans.
Was that from Mintaka, the 7 laws of Atlantis?
You know, I think
they converted
the Law of One is a universal law. It's a natural law. And as well as the other spiritual laws, which is law of karma, responsibility, grace, manifestation. They're all universal laws, and they were coalesced and brought, you know, into form or into reality to help the Atlanteans remember who they were and to give them some guidelines to live by, you know, something to live by, something to go, okay, these are the 7 tenets of our community. You know, if we live by these 7 spiritual laws, we're going to have a great community. There's not going to be any problems. This is really all we need. Remember the Law of One, you know, remember the law of grace, remember the law of you know, respect for others and free will.
Yeah. So, I mean, Atlantis, was it covering the whole earth at the time?
Not the whole earth, but most of the earth. So another important thing to point out is that Atlantis had 5 different incarnations. There were 5 different Atlantean experiments, the risings and the fallings. And because because Atlantis was such a vast land and community, there are many people with many different remembrances of Atlantis. And so one person might talk about, you know, this going on in Atlantis and this what it's looked like. Another person might go, well, that's not what I remember. I remember this, you know, and these people who kind of like argue on the internet over what's what. Well, hundreds of thousands of years, an extremely vast continent / community, 5 risings and fallings. Of course, there's going to be different remembrances, just like somebody who is alive now in the United States, who might live in Tennessee. The culture there, the topography there, it's going to be different than somebody living in Seattle. for
Right.
instance, or somebody in the Midwest. So what it's really important for people to remember, as if you have your own unique remembrance or insights into Atlantis, that's yours. That's what you
Yes.
remember.
Yes.
Other people are going to have their own perspective and their own remembrance, and there doesn't have to be, this whole like coming up against each other about who's right and who's wrong.
No, and that makes so much sense to me because I do have remembrance of Atlantis. Obviously, my name came through, like your name, and
Mhm.
I know your name. You changed your name officially to
Yes.
Ameera, which is the most beautiful name. And did that come through? How did you get that name? Tell us about how you got Ameera.
So as I was going through my process of remembering myself as Myrrh and, doing videos and talking openly, very openly about being Myrrh, one day I was just meditating. I think I was actually just sitting in my backyard in the sun on a lawn chair. And I got this message: you're going to change your name. I said, what?
Wow.
I'm going to what? You're going to, well, what am I going to change it to? They said, you'll figure that out. Don't worry. Okay. So you trust and you go on.
Mhm.
And, I continue to do regressions. And I believe it was during a regression one time when the name Ameera, which is my Mer name, which means princess
Ah,
in Atlantis, that was my Mer name. And as I went deeper into the name Ameera, my birth name was Elizabeth,
mhm.
which is also a queen's name. My family called me Beth, so I changed my name legally to Ameera Beth. That is my entire legal name to honor my birth name. My parents and my sisters, everybody kind of went, "You're doing what? That's not what we named you." And I had to really stand in my power of
Sure.
my truth and say, this is what I'm doing. Like
Yeah.
I'm legally changing my name. I understand that it's uncomfortable for you. You can continue to call me Beth. I'm keeping that in my name, but this is what I'm doing. And, I remember my dad looking at me shocked. He says, well, we're going to have to change the will. And I went, okay,
Well,
call the
that's okay.
lawyer.
Go ahead, Dad. I'm glad you thought of that. That was
He was
very thoughtful.
I'm like, Dad, that is such an amusing, like
Well, it's a
3D
man, and he's being
concern,
cheerful, and he's being a good dad by saying that. I mean, that's very
Yes.
thoughtful, really.
Yes. So, and it's common for people in history, you change your name when you go through a spiritual initiation.
Yes.
You take on a different identity and vibration internally, and then choose a name that is reflective of of that new energy. And the Atlantis, I just kind of added for fun a couple of years ago on Facebook. I'm like, I'm going to change my name to Ameera Atlantis and just try that on for 90 days. And I put it up there. I went, wow, I think this is going to be my new stage name. This is the name I'm going to go out in
Yes.
professionally. And again, it's a stepping into that frequency or that vibration that shows spirit, yes, I'm here for real, and I'm going to take the name,
Yeah.
to show up in that way.
Yeah, when I got mine, the Yara came, well, I had two. I had a first one, I had Isla Serona, and it was weird getting a second. I didn't expect it. But this one feels so much more me. The Yarra Atlantica. I got that I woke up in the morning and the word Atlantica was right in my mind.
Okay.
I thought, okay, this is something I have to use
It
because
sounds very feminine, like Atlantica. This sounds very like some kind of feminine Atlantean goddess going on there.
well, I know I was in Atlantis. I did work in the healing areas with the crystals, the giant crystals hanging
Yes.
over her head. I did work in that, I know for sure. And I know I had more than one life in Atlantis, as you.
Right.
And was I a mer person? And I think I could have been a mer person in Atlantis. I've never had the real insight into it, but I feel very connected to it as well.
Yeah.
When you talk about it, I mean, so you were telling us how you saw Atlantis, the Merlantis in the dome.
Yes.
And it's cloaked, and I know you wear something to allow you to see it.
Yes. So the deeper I went into, the story of Merlantis and the story of my soul, and one of the benefits of doing past life regression therapy, and that's why I became a past life regression therapist, because it helped me so much, is you start to really develop your own stronger channel, not only in the trance, but out in the real world.
Mhm.
And so I started to meditate and ask questions to my soul about, about the mer people. And I discovered or remembered that we wore a jewel that was like embedded within our bodies. That was like
Oh,
a homing device. So Merlantis was cloaked. You
interesting.
couldn't see it
That
unless you
makes sense.
carried,
Sure.
unless you were a resident,
Mhm.
unless you carried that piece with you or on you that would lead us home. It was our homing device.
Sure.
So know
The
how far away I
frequency.
went,
Yep.
it would always lead me home.
That's so fantastic. I mean, it's ingenious. I mean, you can't make that up. It's just such a perfect
Right.
understanding
Yes.
that they're protecting themselves because, that everyone has to protect yourself to a point,
Yes.
and here you are being guided. So when you got there, I know it was amazing experience for you.
Yes. Yeah.
Totally just
Homecoming,
it's
because life as mer is much different than life as human.
sure, sure. And I used to watch the show on, I think it was on Netflix, called The Sirens. Have you ever
Mhm.
seen that?
I
That
I
was
know what you're talking about.
But it's the closest to what you talk about when I've heard you talk on different things, how the mer women, I mean, the mermaids and the mer people don't look exactly like this Hollywood version.
No,
No, they're very much more of
fish-like.
a fish-like person, exactly.
Yes.
So that's kind of bursting the balloon. Sorry, everybody. But also, you shared how when the mermaids were helping the sailors and different things that beings that saw them, they changed their shape. They could
Yes.
shift. And you said you could shift
Yes.
because
We were
you made choices.
shapeshifters.
Yes. And you
So
made
we
choices to do what?
choices to do, you mean in the shifting?
Yes. When you were shifting,
So,
what was your reasons for it?
oh, okay. So could be a variety of reasons. Many of us chose to shapeshift and grow legs to go on and help the Atlanteans to go on land, and we could hold that form. I remember being able to hold it like, like a dawn to dusk type of a thing.
So it's a
Um,
truth. All those tales refer to true.
Yes, they're true.
That's
And
so
then we would have
amazing.
to always go back to the water. There was a
Yes.
portal that I would come up through by the Temple of Poseidon, where I would be able to rise up through and transform. And I remember these very long, thin, funny looking feet. They weren't, very, but they were Murphy, right? They
Right,
were,
right.
they were fins that transformed into feet. And we were very awkward walking on land until we got used to what that dynamic. But when you think about the stories of Ariel and Little Mermaid, how she longed to be human and
Yes.
that's what it was like for us. We loved the Atlanteans. We loved their long, strong legs and how they could move about the earth and all the things that they could do that we couldn't. So we chose to be able to come up for a time and be able to be with them and assist them. And many of us also took the Atlanteans as partners and lovers, of course.
Oh, really?
But yes, and of course we would transform our faces too, because
Sure.
to be helpful, you can't scare people.
No, exactly, exactly. So, I had a question and now I can't remember what it was. It was
I
about,
do want to talk about the sirens when we have
yes,
when
go
we have
ahead.
a moment.
You can
Okay,
talk
so
about it.
sirens, the siren mythology. About these creatures who would come up and they would look as these beautiful women, and then they would go teeth and fangs and they would eat the sailors.
Oh,
Those are not, they would do these horrible things. Those were not true mer. Those were the hybrid mers that were created in the Atlantean experiments.
oh, really?
So
Wow.
there was, many genetic experiments that took place in Atlantis. And I have an aspect of my soul that took part as a scientist in those melding of genetics together between creatures to see what would happen. And
Sure.
for those creatures, it was a horrible experience.
Mm,
We did not take into account that being has a soul, has all the things. We did it in the name of science, and I have like I said, I have an aspect of my being that participated in that, and that's part of my karma and part of what I am doing here as a healer and a speaker to heal the totality of my soul. Many of us are not only healing our ancestral lineages,
mhm.
we know that we hear a lot of talk about that. We are also healing our other aspects and other dimensions who are responsible for nefarious acts. We are all perpetrators. We are all victims.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
one of the paradigms that we need to collapse, one of the stories, is that dualistic idea of victim, perpetrator, hero, villain, good guy, bad guy, because we're all of it. Okay, so when we look
Yes.
at the story of Atlantis and we look at, the dark that came in, and that you have aspects of yourself that participated in that. You have
Yes.
aspects of yourself that were on the other side, that
Mhm.
were the healers and teachers and the quote, good guys. So the sirens were a product. They were an unnatural, inorganic product of trying to create a mermaid. Because anything
Wow.
you try to create anything against the organic
Nature.
nature of God, right? It's not going to come out well. It's not going
Yeah, I mean,
to
you
end
don't, you
well.
don't think of that. I mean, they're doing it today. I mean, cloning
Yes.
is sort of, it's like, it's
Yep.
probably out of control, and we just haven't seen it all.
Yep.
It's not in the forefront to all the mainstream people.
Well, it's been going on for a very, very long time, probably some decades. And so anytime, in the news or in science, when they tell us they've discovered something or they can do something, they've been doing it for 20 years.
Or
And
a
they're now
100
just
years,
telling us, or
or
yeah,
100 years,
whatever. And they're
or
now just
thousands
telling
of
us
years.
about it.
Yes.
So the advancements in AI and in science are well advanced and beyond what they're telling us. And I mean, the hybrids, the experiments, the clones, they're out there in the world. I mean, I absolutely, the inorganic beings, and there are beings who come in and who are developed, who are soulless, because they do not come from the essence of divine creator. They're manufactured.
Is that what they call an NCP?
What's an NCP?
I think that's the proper. I'm just learning about this. It's like a non-person. I can't remember the exact description of this person. There's a particular person who's talking about this online, and it was a whole new concept to me, that there are people, there's a lot of people on our planet that aren't actual people. They don't have a soul.
Right.
Now, is that a strange thing to actually hear and then to understand? And she said that it was a huge amount of people, like it could be 75% of our population.
I've heard those numbers too, that the majority of the souls on this planet are soulless. The majority of the beings are soulless. I don't know. I'm very conflicted in trying to say whether I agree or what the percentage is, but I think it's higher than we know. I do believe it's higher than we think or know. 75% to me feels a little bit.
It's high. It's high. Yeah. I would hope not. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's kind of terrifying, to be honest.
It is actually. That's when I heard that number. I said, "Oh, don't say that. That's not. I don't want to hear that. I don't really want."
Yeah, that's lightly terrifying.
Yeah, and the point is that no wonder I'm thinking to myself, well, then no wonder so many people can't wake up.
Yes, right. And no wonder there is so much cognitive dissonance, and disassociation, and people who really are truly swept into AI programs and the inorganic and all these unnatural, things happening because their soul can't do it different. They just can't do it different.
That's quite an awakening to that thought itself.
Yeah,
that just blows my mind, actually.
And there's also a lot of talk in the spiritual world between channels who say Enki and Lo. One's a good guy, one's a bad guy.
Oh my goodness, that one drives me insane. Yeah.
And it does a little bit me too, because here's my thoughts on, again, the victim perpetrator, pitting one against the other, the good brother, the bad brother, the Cain and Abel scenario is it is a distraction.
Okay.
And if we do not drop the blame this guy, the dualistic idea of all of this, we'll never know. And it is a distraction, and it is not in the idea of oneness. There is a matrix version and a divine eternal presence version of everything and everyone. There are matrix beings that are here on this planet coming down through the lower dimensions that are affecting and messing and hijacking people. And there are a lot of people who are, if you, ego and all the things that cause people to attune to energies that are maybe not so benevolent, that is alive in all of us. None of us
Sure.
are not,
Oh,
none
of
of us
course.
can say we've never interacted or called in
Mhm.
something that, okay, that is a part of the human experience. Okay. And at the same time, when you really are in tune with your soul, with who you are, hold humility, hold love, and see the law of one, you will attract the divine eternal presence of a being, probably one that you have an association or affiliation that will help you with your mission. So this whole idea of these healers and these channels blaming each other and calling each other out and saying, well, she doesn't have a soul or he doesn't have a soul. You know, I think that is really bad medicine.
Well, it's judgment and it's all old energy. It's just like,
Yes,
it's just old. And why do we even have to go there? You know,
yes.
I
It's
think
not
that
serving.
it doesn't, and I
It's
love
not
that. That was a
serving.
great explanation. Thank you. That was a beautiful, and making it, putting it in a context that really makes sense to me.
Yes, the truth will always be reliant on the channel who is speaking it. The
Absolutely.
lens of the channel who is speaking the truth will always rely on their lens. So
Yeah.
our discernment, okay, is number one. And a lot of people think they have discernment. I feel I have discernment. Okay. The idea that having, you know, trying to find the right words. Awareness is key, but
Mhm.
awareness is going to be driven by perception, and awareness
Yes.
is going to be driven by our own internal triggers, wounds, and life experiences.
Absolutely.
We are all vibrating towards something different. Some people say sacred geometry, Metatronic geometry is everything. It's great. It's wonderful. I do. There are some channels out there saying Metatron and Metatronic geometry is evil and it's all an
Yes,
inversion.
it's the bad
Okay?
guy.
It's
Yeah.
the bad guy,
Yeah.
right? It
I
all
had never
serves,
heard that till in the last year or two. Talk about more distraction.
talk about
to-
more distraction and division.
Exactly. It's more division. And there was actually a show on TV on like HBO Max called His Dark Materials,
Mhm.
and the bad entity was Metatron at the end.
Yes.
And I was,
That is the story circulating around is Metatron. That
and I
Metatron is a
couldn't
fallen
believe
angel.
that. That shocked me because I was introduced to Metatron, oh my gosh, early, like late 99 or 2000. And I'm like, I never thought of Metatron as a bad guy.
There is a matrix version of Metatron, and
There you
there is
go.
a
There's
divine
always a dual
eternal
version.
presence. My experience with Metatron, who has been a guide in
Mhm,
my life for
mhm.
many, many years. And for those of you who know me, you know, I have a sacred geometry clothing company
Right.
with Andaras in it, right? Sacred geometry. I mean, it's all tattooed all over my body. It is a foundational cornerstone of my teachings and my lives. And Metatron and sacred geometry have been nothing but a blessing to me. So the channels who are promoting are attuning to, because yes, it's true. Every symbol, everything can be reversed and inverted. Every being has an inversion.
Yes.
Everything has an opposite. So if you are attuning to or paying attention to the inversions, guess what you're going to get caught up in?
That.
If you are attuning to the divine eternal presence of something or someone, even the Nazi symbol, the swastika, has an inversion.
Yes, it
The
does.
Wiccan symbol,
I think it is the
star,
inversion.
the 5-pointed star, has an inversion.
Yes.
How are you using that symbol? What's your intention?
The intention.
Okay, so this distractive energy about, you know, this is bad, stay away from it. This is good, go to it, is not allowing people to go to their own internal guidance system and learn for themselves. There are teachers who are actually telling you what to believe. There are
Oh, no,
YouTube
no,
people out there with
no.
thousands of viewers who are, instead of teaching people to think for themselves and talking about things, they're telling you what to believe and what not to believe. We are all vibrating towards different things. The flower of life might feel great to me. It might work great with my energy system. Maybe the flower of life doesn't work well for somebody else's system just because of what they are vibrating towards. It does not make me good or bad, or them good or bad. We are all attuning to different things because of our individual and unique frequency, vibration, karma, and learning experience.
Yes. I mean, that that's powerful information, that you just shared all that, because I don't think people are even, I mean, if they've really been going down rabbit holes, they'll understand what you talked about,
Yes.
all these symbols. I have been down those rabbit holes, so I totally
Yes.
understand. So, and it's good for people to hear it, because now they can go and check it out if they want to. If they don't
Yes.
want to, just, you have to go internally, like you're saying, and check in to see whether it's in agreement with your soul.
And when a channel, I'm just going to say a little bit more about this because
Yeah, go ahead.
obviously I'm triggered. When I hear these channels talking about the flower of life as the daisy of death.
Ooh,
Okay. Yes.
I've never heard that.
What kind of fear are you imparting? What kind of a program are you putting into the collective when you call something the daisy of death? You have people who have, flower of life tattooed on their bodies. They work with it, they draw with it, they, all kinds of things. And all of a sudden you're telling them this. I have literally had people email me in a panic, said that,
Sure,
this certain channel said this about the daisy of death. Is this true? And I think, what is this? What are you doing? Like, what are you trying to prove? Or how are you trying to hijack people and move them into a fear paradigm for something that is absolutely a mistruth?
Well, that fear paradigm is what keeps people under control.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's a control mechanism.
And
So
if
we
you can
really
put
have to
fear, if you can get a group of people together and put fear in them, guess what? They're probably going to follow you because they think you'll save them.
Exactly. So this is what everyone listening has to be aware of. Anything that causes fear, you have to step out of that fear and look at it from a higher view.
Yes.
And say, do I really believe this? Does it really ring true for me? I have to do it all the time, constantly. Because when I check in with myself, I'm like, no, I don't believe that. No, I don't believe that. And I don't believe that. And maybe, sometimes you could just say, oh, well, that you could easily say that. But really, I'm going in with the sole intention of asking my inner self, my higher self, what is it? Is this something that I need to be concerned about? No, you don't.
And my philosophy, whether I'm teaching a course or working with people one-on-one, I always tell them, when you hear something come out of my mouth, take what works, leave the rest.
Yes.
I am not offended
Yeah.
if I say something, if I speak something that does not resonate with your soul and your truth. I am not offended if you think whatever that thing Ameera said, it just doesn't ring true for me. I don't believe it. It's totally fine with me.
Because we're all growing and learning.
Yes, we're all growing and learning. And again, we all have our individual life paths and frequency and vibration. Okay, there were many things that I was taught and shown when I first started to awaken that I didn't believe or I didn't want to believe. And so I kind of put it on the back burner, and pretty soon you learn and you grow and you bring things out and you put things back. And I allow what I consider to be my truth to be malleable and to be flexible, because the things that I believed 10 years ago are not the things I'll probably believe 10 years from now.
Things have evolved so much. Plus, we're learning a lot of things that we had no clue about. And it's sort of, it can be overwhelming, but we needed to know.
Right.
We needed to know. And then you have to decide whether you're going to believe it or not.
Yeah.
That's the whole, isn't it? It's this whole journey we've been on. I mean, this is our journey right now. This is the key moments for us right now to step into our sovereignty and say, no, I don't believe in that. I'm not choosing that, or I am. It's really,
or I believe in this. This feels good to me.
Exactly. Believe in it and say, yeah, I really feel good with this good information. So I know what my question was when you were talking about the Mer people and they were intermarrying. It was, so did the people you intermarried with and the Atlanteans at the time, did they know you were a Mer person?
Yes.
They did.
Absolutely. They knew we were Mer people.
How did they know?
And they loved us and welcomed us.
Really? That's interesting, because
we taught them about the cycles of nature. Because so remember the Atlanteans, and when I talk about Atlantis, I'm talking about the 5th generation of Atlantis, the one 13,000 years ago, that what is known as the golden age of Atlantis. That's the one that I speak and I'm here to talk about, because that is the one that has the strongest effect on this cycle and this timeline, and the one we're attempting to course correct. So we came forward because mostly the Atlanteans, all the Atlanteans were for the first time 3rd dimensional beings. fifth dimensional consciousness and a third dimensional body, 5 senses, learning how to navigate a physical body, learning how to grow food, how to eat food, learning about all the cycles of nature, the sunrise, the sunset, the moon, all these things. The Mer came forward to teach them so that they could, live a life as a human and stay connected to God and stay connected to the land and stay connected to one another.
So I don't know if we actually talked about, I know I've heard you talk about, so I know what you're talking about. We had galactic beings choose to come down here.
Yes.
To become experiencers of humanity.
Yes.
And their purpose was that the only purpose they came, like what you just said?
So remember, we're creators.
Yes.
We're experimenters.
Yep.
And in this life, in this carnation, we're creating and experimenting all the time because we're part of the creator, right? So I imagine it would get a little, boring being a fifth dimensional, sixth dimensional type of being and having the same types of experiences all the time. So we come and we incarnate into all these other experiences. So the experiment, set up by the creator was the volunteers to come and experience being in a 3D body with 5 senses and emotions for the very first time. And to see if we could do that, and navigate a physical reality while we're still remembering we're part of God.
Yeah, and that's what we're in right now, aren't we? So we're in the return of Atlantis. We're like you said that. I've heard you say that. We're in the return of Atlantis, and we are here to correct, like you just said, course correct.
Yes.
And so where do you see us now? Where do you see humanity at this point?
So I'm going to just touch back into the course correction real quick. On December 20th, the winter solstice, 2020. Remember when we had that Saturn and Jupiter conjunction, the big one?
Okay, we entered into the Aquarian age officially?
Yes, or what that conjunction between Saturn and Jupiter, which great mother and great father, right? When they came together, that was the centrifugal center point that we passed through that began to course correct and reverse the spiral of Atlantis from the fall 13,000 years ago.
Oh, I heard you say that, but I didn't quite grasp it yet. So now I get it, because that was what they've all been talking about. We were going through the center of the universe. Yes. And that was the actual point where we did it.
That's what we did it. And that's where we began to reverse the spiral of the fall and course correct humanity.
Wow.
Now, the good news is it's not going to take 13,000 years to go back.
Good to hear.
Yes. So we've had this, slowing down. We go through the centrifugal energetically through that center point, and we began this long, slow reversal process that is going to speed up. And one of the things we're going to find as things start speeding up, as the United States just went through its Pluto return.
Yes.
We are going to have Pluto over the next couple of years or so going back and forth like a pendulum between Capricorn and Aquarius. Capricorn is structure and order, government, finances. Aquarius is the new, the innovation, the, bringing out the new. So as it pendulum and kind of wrecking balls, I kind of see it sometimes as a wrecking ball going back and forth. We're going to see the continued collapse of, we just had the collapse of a few different financial institutions.
Yes, yes.
We're going to continue to see the deconstruction of our core, of all the things, all the castles built on the foundations of sand happening. I call it the creative destruction. Where everything in God and life, everything in nature is a cycle. Create, destroy, recreate. Spring to summer to fall to winter is the destruction, the creation with the new spring. Everything is a cycle. Okay, we are in a cycle of creative destruction. We are deconstructing to go into the new creation, and we're kind of on that line or that balance of where we're doing both at once. We're dismantling and recreating. Okay, so if we want the recreation to come through, and remember, people like you and I, we are the reconstruction crew.
Yeah,
we are the recreators.
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
Okay, but the destruction has to happen
Yeah.
first. If we want to rewrite a story, if we want to create a new paradigm and ultimately go into the new Earth Atlantis, we have to pass through that eye of the needle. Okay. And we have to be okay with the letting go. When Atlantis fell, when the fifth and final fall of Atlantis occurred, and which was all pre-planned, by the way, because if you have an experiment, there's no experiment without a variable. If it's all same, there's no experiment, nothing changes, right?
Yep.
Okay, if it's all love and light and all utopia and all holding hands and singing and law of one, okay, which is great, there's no experiment. The real test or experiment to see if we could hold our fifth dimensional consciousness was the allowing in of what we call the dark element. We all knew before we came that this was going to be the experiment. We were not victims, okay? They were not the perpetrators. We knew it was going to happen. And, you know, we come through the veil of forgetfulness because we're human.
Right.
We don't remember it's going to happen. There were many healers and teachers who did remember, okay, this is going to happen. We have to prepare the community. We're going to go through this rite of passage. And ultimately, everyone's going to remember we're connected to God. We're not going to fall into ego. You know, that was the hope anyway. And we're going to be able to make the experiment be something successful, that we're able to retain our fifth dimensional consciousness, and Atlantis will succeed. Atlantis will become exalted this time around. So the dark element comes in and all the things happen, the AI, the technology, the scientists, the corruption, all the things start to unravel and unwind. And of course, because the people of Atlantis don't remember, this was the plan, most of them fall into the trappings of what's going on and go into fear, into panic, and all the things that make us rightfully human emotions. We forget that we are eternal beings. We are eternal beings. There is no death.
Yes.
And upon the fall, the actual going down of Atlantis, there was much panic and mayhem. And, you know, we forgot we were eternal beings. The Atlanteans forgot. And so there was a lot of disarray and a lot of despair. Despair is the word. And I'm going to go back and speak about despair real quick once I finish my little tangent here. So Atlantis, you know, Atlantis goes, the waves come in, the Atlantis sinks, all the things we hear about, and it was okay because we're eternal beings, right? But the dark did something they weren't supposed to do. They weren't supposed to go in and whisper in the ear of every teacher, healer, priest, priestess, and I work with a lot of healers who have this program. It's your fault, they said. As they went down, as Atlantis went down,
It's your fault.
hey, I
No
work with a lot
shame.
of people who feel like I was responsible for the downfall of Atlantis. It was me. I had that program, okay? Because
I think we all have, because yes,
element
the blame and the
whispers
shame and the
that
guilt.
just as
Where
we
do
went
we get
down,
the guilt from? We're always with guilt, and this
and the
must be it.
despair.
And then the religions come in and even dig it in even deeper.
Yep. Okay, so we all pass, and many souls. There's been a lot of soul retrievals that have happened for the people in Atlantis. A lot of communities and healers and have gone in and retrieved their own soul, or retrieved, you know, many of the beings who went down. But there are. I don't know if everybody's been retrieved or not. I just don't know that. But the idea of despair and abandonment is the tenet of human suffering. Our self-loathing, our pain, our woundedness comes from this idea of despair and abandonment that is so deeply seated within us. And you know what, religions just continue to amplify that, right? Okay, so when we go in and look at where that was created, and my belief is it was created when Atlantis fell. Many people think Atlantis was a failure. It was not. It was simply an experiment that went one way or the other.
It was another learning. Yep.
It was nobody's fault. It was another learning. And so as we come back onto this spiral, and we seem to be repeating many, many things that are happening, it is very important to remember that we are eternal beings. Every soul has its own path and time lock here on this planet for as long as you and I will be here. That's been predetermined. Some of us are going sooner than others. So
Yes, we've
families, so
already seen
groups, so
some of that.
contracts,
Yep.
all of that. And we'll continue to see that. I believe this is a water planet and we are going to go back to becoming a water planet.
That's
I
an
don't know when.
unbelievable- you know, all I can think of is the Waterworld movie with Kevin
Yes.
Costner.
Yes.
We're going to go to that, huh?
I believe we will have some kind of something similar to that. How much land masses will be left? I don't know. You know, there's a lot of
I checked in
seers.
on that because I heard you say that, and I said,
Mhm.
well, there'll be more land mass than you think.
That's what exactly what I was about to say. It is not going to be as drastic, in
Right.
my understanding, as what was once foretold, and that's because of the work we've
We've
been doing.
shifted it.
Yes,
Yes.
there will
See,
be
this is
some,
what it takes.
and
Yes.
as the land masses fall, guess what? Land masses are going to rise.
Yes, because everything it keeps shifting right now, and they keep telling. I mean, I remember reading, you know, don't buy anything near the ocean because the oceans are going to rise. But then you hear like some people, the wealthy ones, buying all the land by the
Yes.
ocean. It's like,
What do they know that? What do the elite know that we don't? Right?
why is it they tell us not to do it so that now we leave it all wide open so they go and do it? It's like, really?
Well, and also they might be doing it because their sole contract dictates that they will fall with the land masses.
Well, this is part of the karma, isn't it?
Yes, I believe I will always be where I'm supposed to be, and I will never be where I'm not supposed to be.
That's a very good thought, and it's a
The
very
eternal yes, the eternalness of my soul tells me that it's okay wherever I am. My soul contract is my soul contract, and if I am to depart this planet earlier than later, that was my soul plan, and
You're
I am
at peace
eternal.
with it. You're at peace with it. And I've gotten to that point myself because, yeah, you know, when you say we're an eternal being, that means that when you die, you're not really, it's not over. You're
Right.
you're an essence now. You don't
Yep.
have a body, but you still have a soul essence that keeps growing and learning on the other side.
Correct. And then we prepare for a new experience.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's incredible information and very powerful. I mean, you got that through meditating and just connecting and
Yeah. And just, you know, I will, you know how it is. Sometimes you're doing nothing and you get these inspirations and these
absolutely.
downloads.
Yep.
Sometimes I'm writing, you know, I write a lot on Facebook about Atlantis. I'm writing a book on the great kingdom of Atlantis. And sometimes I'm just tuning in and, you know, the words and the memories and all it just flows. It just comes through me and goes. Again, I've done a lot of regressions into this information, a lot of going into my soul history. And, you know, you just bring that all together. And even when I talk to people, like when I have conversations like this, sometimes I'll get new information or someone will ask me a question that I've never been asked before. And I'll go, oh, well, that's, you know, and then new information comes in.
Yes. Yes. Are you connected in any way to Egypt?
Egypt, of course, was once covered by water, as was all, and we know this because of, you know, what the shells and all the things that have been found. I know that I have a connection somehow, some way to Egypt. I haven't explored a lot about that. I feel like I'll visit there one day and probably go, you know, and there it will all, you know, there it will all be. Yeah, I feel very much connected to, you know, Africa. To the Eye of Africa, which is said to be the center point of Atlantis. I feel very connected to, and I've yet to visit there as well. I did go to Portugal last year and visit the Azores, which is so super Atlantean, and Madeira, and pick up on that great father energy, which is related to the great mother energy of the Hawaiian island chain, which is where I live, and kind of bring all that together. So, you know, visiting these little pieces and going and picking up and expanding. And I hope to do a lot more of that this year.
Yeah, that's exciting. I mean, travel always opens so many new doors to everything we have done.
Yes.
I don't know how far we've gone, but we're moving on here into some time, but it's been so interesting. I mean, I know you've talked about your connection to Yamana, and I loved how all right, tell us about your connection.
So Yamaya
Yamaya.
And there's different variations and pronunciations of her name
I
depending
never heard it
on what
until I heard
what
you
your
say it.
cosmology is. So the
Mhm.
Cubans honor her, the Brazilians honor her, the Africans honor her as the mother of the fishes, and so it'll be a little variations through different cultures. She is the mother of the fishes. She is the goddess of the surface waters, and I have an association. She is my oversoul. I am part of her. She is part of me. There are many women who also are, and maybe some men too, who have an association with Yemaya, just as there are a lot of women who have association with, say, Mary Magdalene,
Yes.
or Metatron, or Archangel Michael, these great beings. And I believe all of us have an association with a mighty being.
Yes.
That we have an aspect, they're part of our oversoul. So
Yeah.
I have a soul, I am a part of her soul stream with a particular mission from her energy to bring forward particular information. I am not the only one. How do I know I'm not the only one? How do I know that I am not the Yemaya walking around in the flesh? Well, I haven't learned to walk on water yet. which tells me, there are many people out there who say, I am the official, Ra or Horus. Well, if you are going to claim to be the only aspect of a being, you better be throwing down some big ass miracles. You better be able to produce some things that are God or goddess like in some extreme ways. Okay. We are meant to be great beings, but also humble beings. I believe you and I have all kinds of superpowers that aren't turned on yet. Like,
Yes.
I know I can walk on water. I know I can do these things with water, right? I know, but I have not remembered how yet. And I believe we haven't remembered some of these things because, maybe we need to wait until we are really humble enough and evolved enough to handle it responsibly.
Exactly.
Because if I can learn to send a tidal wave across the ocean somewhere, I better not be doing it because, I'm having a temper tantrum.
Yes.
Or
Perfect analogy. We have to be mature. We need to get into
yes,
what I call the spiritual maturity to be able to maturely handle these superpowers.
right.
Not anyone can just have that. You've got to
for benevolence. So, all of us have
For
these
benevolence.
connections. We always have these abilities in our DNA that I do believe that we will remember and bring forward as we continue to evolve. But, any channel who wants to say they're the one and only, that they're probably working through a little bit of ego. I mean,
it's impossible anyway.
It's impossible. I could not hold all the light that is contained by Yemaya. My physical body could not contain that. We would blow up.
Example. Mm-hmm. Yes,
right?
And I totally agree with that. And I loved how you connected Yemaya or Yemanya to was it the Mother Mary? Like she's connected to Mother Mary.
As the Christians, the Catholics,
they just
canonized all the
and
beings.
they
made she's Mother Mary in the Catholic Church. Yes, Queen of the Stars,
this
Queen
has
of the
all
Sea.
come from ancient knowing and ancient gods and goddesses that have been around much longer than the ones that we're currently aware of.
Correct.
There's and this is the ancient knowledge that we've been told we're going to get back.
And it's in us. We are the records. We are the history books they could not destroy.
Mm-hmm.
The Library of Alexandria might be destroyed. The scrolls and ancient documents might be destroyed, but we carry that. We are the scrolls and the libraries they could not take down.
That's what the Akashic records are. And when we're ready to get that information, and like you say, when we're ready and humble enough to receive it, we get it.
Right. Yep.
Oh my gosh, it's so amazing. So any final words, like where you think humanity is, as I said, and how well are we doing? I mean, it seems like we're doing better than we think. Is it true or not?
I would like to believe that as well. I believe the next decade is going to be very difficult.
Okay.
From a human perspective, from what we as comfy and our way of life, I believe there are going to be a lot of significant changes in the material physical world on every level. Okay. And my belief is that I am really not here to save anybody but myself. I am here to speak and talk and share and do what I can, but the other program that I hope will collapse is the Savior Martyr program that a lot of humans carry in general, and the only person you're here to save is your own soul. And there are many pathways up the mountain and ways to do that. Ameera's way, Ameera's teachings of Atlantis are not the only way. They will be a way for people who align with my energy, with my teachings.
Yes.
And if you don't, then there will be something or somebody else
Find
over there that you're better aligned to.
Yes.
Okay, so finding who you resonate with. Okay, if you're going to look to a teacher, if you're going to look to whatever for that, is very, very important. But always going back to the self and going, okay, and sitting with that. And how does that teaching, how is this person imprinting me? Because one of the biggest challenges we are going to continue to have as we go through this decade and beyond is we're still looking outside of ourselves for a teacher or a healer to save us or to show us the way. Sovereign human beings, okay, from my perspective, we take it all as information. If it rings true with me within, and that teacher is not trying to teach me, tell me what to do, who I am, okay, allows me to discover that on my own, fall down, stand back up, no judgment, okay, that is going to be your individual way through this eye of the needle. I believe we will see a fall of many land masses. We will see a fall of structures, communities, and many people. Their life contracts will expire and they will go back to the creator. I have to believe that what is real and organic and true will be successful. That this planet will be exalted by the grace of God, by the love in our hearts, and a return to the law of one, that everything in the natural organic world is what is destined to survive. That will not happen without, some challenges and some trade-offs. Okay, so whatever you see, observe, feel going on around this, going around what's going to happen in your families, in your communities, within yourself, you always have to go back to the truth is that you are an eternal being and that it's okay.
You'll come back. You'll have choice.
Nothing and no one is lost in the mind of God. And I don't know if that was how direct of an answer that was or not. I guess maybe I don't have one because my experience is going to be a little different than your experience and everybody's experience listening to this.
No, it's a very down to earth, and just be prepared. Just you have to be grounded in this world right now, very grounded, and be, you have to stand in your own sovereignty, as you're saying, which is don't be swayed easily by either side. You've got to make your own decision within you. We don't have any more gurus. We are the guru for us, each individual being.
And from a practical standpoint, I mean, it makes sense. If you feel like, well, gosh, it feels good to have some extra food around. Or if it feels good to have some extra supplies and things like that. Because if something were to happen that was catastrophic, being able to take care of yourself and take care of your family, that is just good, practical, sound advice. So pick up your things that will help you sustain yourself without fear. Do it from the mindset of, well, it just makes sense to do this because the world is changing very, very quickly. And I'd like to be able to take care of myself, take care of my family, maybe take care of my neighbors in a way.
Exactly. And that's the perfect advice. That is such a perfect thing to say. So I just want to thank you, but I'm going to thank our listeners for coming on. And I hope that you would love to tell us how much you would enjoyed this session, because Ameera has shared incredible new knowledge that I had never heard some of these things. And it's knowledge that you have to discern, is it for you or not? And also, it percolates in us. This information. That's why I bring all of you incredible people onto this show, because you are bringing in all your insights, and we get to discern what is ours and what is it that what is important to us. And it helps us to grow and expand as well. So please give us your comments, email us, email Ameera, and we'd love to hear from you. And Ameera, thank you so much for your willingness to step out of the box, the matrix
Thank
and the
you.
dome that humanity has put us in. And you are proving to all of us that we all embody essences from other planets and galaxies. And it's very exciting what you shared. And you have
Thank you.
chosen to embrace and to share your cosmic goddess with the world. And we salute you and thank you for your courage, your willingness, and your transparency and your authenticity. You are totally, I feel, very genuine in what you're doing. And the divine human is rising, and we hold unlimited potential gifts as we create our new earth realities. And thank you again, Ameera, for your courage.
Thank you for allowing me to express myself.
It was beautiful. And for stepping into owning your divine light. And as we raise our hearts frequency, know that we are nourished with the love of the universe. I am Yarra Atlantica Miller, also known as Janet Miller, and I will see you all on the next episode.